We have last time we have distinguished compassion from attachment. Being good to your children, that is affection. So what is attachment? Attachment also has other feelings in it. Like, so if your children is not good to you, then you feel bad about it, and when it's not your children, then you do not give them affection. That's on 100 times that in compared to your children. So the most important part in compassion is to acquire the sense of equanimity. That is the one of the most important thing in the practice. Without the sense of equanimity, but if you try to override the senses through affection or by other interests, then you can say that it is not a practice, that you are practicing the compassion. A lot of you often misunderstand the feeling of love, affection, and compassion. You tend to pretend that it's compassion when you are acting on under the control of affection. It's very dangerous. The basis of compassion lies with equanimity, but the basis of equanimity should be seen without affection or attachment. Okay, so here the basic thing would be, how can we see an object without affection or attachment? You should be able to see other objects detached, just like you're looking at it, just as if you're looking at it like you're a tree. But that is a very selfish act. So here, we should be able to have the practice of removing ourselves from attachment and affection, but should be able to observe things as they are. And all the objects that you had, which were the target of your attachment and affection, would be your enemy. When you are doing boxing, the place that hurts the most is when you are hit in the jaw. Then you're not. It doesn't hurt you so much because you feel unconscious, and by the time you wake up, the game is already over. But if you are hit beneath your ribs through a hook, then you feel like you're short of breath, and no matter how much you try to stand up, you're not able to stand up. And it's almost same as that. So compassion is concentration on all mankind or all sentient beings that desires to be free from suffering. Here we have 3 different categories. The first one is The first one is the mankind that you have relation by blood. Since the world revolves around in affection and relation, but we also call the other people, other category, as someone who has been formed depending on the Buddhist doctrines. So even Buddha had the relation by blood, and also he had the relation by the Buddhist doctrines. We, although Buddha has never seen us, people like us who has relation with him in Buddhism but no direct relation, we call ourselves Buddhist relation. Buddha has treated all relations, all mankind with equanimity. Here you can see that for those who did not have a direct relation with Buddha, but only through the Buddhist doctrines, he made sure that if people could believe them on Sutra even after thousands of years later, he made sure that he stated that those people who tries to learn Buddhism, then it's for sure that they did have some relation with Buddha. But I don't think we had relation with Buddha in our previous lives. But I think it is his way of encouraging us to study. Because we did not study, we went around becoming an insect or becoming like a dog, and now maybe we are born as a human. We are not even aware where we were at the time of Buddha. We would have lived like that, but he gave sense of equanimity even to those who are mere, who did not have any relation with Buddha at the time. It gives us constant headache if you try to develop the sense or the relation by blood. It will lead to the power. It will lead to the attachment of power or attachment to money. And if these things disappear, then you become enemies with them. So if you're making relations with those, then in the end, you're actually making the relations for your selfishness, but in the end, those relations with whom you can meet freely without attachment, but also with a true heart, is those that you share your Buddhist doctrines. And so if you say you share relation, this relation with someone, that means that's a very precious relationship. You should not keep some relations attached to you because they are close to you, but just like Buddha did, you should treat all other people or all other sentient beings with a sense of equanimity, and the basis for it should be your desire for happiness of everyone. Although most of the sentient beings, or although most of this mankind desire happiness, they do not seem happy, and that's because most of the things that you think makes you happy are most of the things that desire for the fulfillment of your greed. So the seed itself cannot become the seed of happiness. but they actually inherently try to fulfill your desire. But since we have lived like that for so long, you believe that it is your way to your happiness. You try so hard to gain your happiness, and in the process, you're actually falling deep into that path of suffering. That means you have misunderstanding of the seed of happiness on its own, and because the seed itself cannot be happy, you're repeating the act of unhappiness that is inbound. So through the death and reincarnation, those who constantly suffer agony, and if you have the sense that if all your acts are for all sentient beings, that is a compassion. And if you have a same sense of compassion for everyone, then that is called equanimity. In here, there should be no I, and you should be detached to self. If you say it's my family, my parents, my children, and I'll give you an example. One of the sattva who comes to temple told me, recently I went to voluntary work and I don't think I can go there anymore because I don't do even to my mother. But how can I go for voluntary acts? So I asked, if you do not do this, then are you going to do it for your mother? But she said, I'm too busy to help my mother. That means she's not going to do any. And that is also in the end, that also became an excuse for herself, in the wish that she doesn't want to do it. Weirdly, the excuse somehow worked out that she's fooling herself. Habitually, her sense that she doesn't want to do that feeling got stronger. And for example, if you say, if you have the sense that you want to sleep, then even if you're standing or sitting, or even if you're doing something else, you feel sleepy. It seems like that. So the sense of I should be missing. You should weaken the sense of I, whether it's my family, my husband, my work, my friends, or my co-workers. These things should be missing. Then only you can have the sense of equanimity for everyone. Especially those people who rule the country, whether it's president or whether it's governor of a state. When they become a leader of an organization, then they should have more sense of morality. In it, there are more people living there, whether it's rich or poor, or whether it's young and old. And by the state-wise, it could be someone from Gangwon-do or Jeollado, and everyone is different. Everyone lives different, everyone thinks different. But when you are a president, you should be able to surpass all differences, and you should be able to maintain the sense of equanimity. I don't think I've seen so many presidents like that. Although Nelson Mandela was a black, and although he was abused, while he was doing a freedom activity for the blacks, I don't think he paid even a single person into a prison. I read his autobiography and I was very touched. And even when he was doing that, he treated the whites and also blacks equally. But he said we should never forget, or we should always remember the time that we suffered, and we should never repeat something like this again. He made sure that everything was falling in place, and then he left his resign. Looking at his face, he's not very handsome man, but I think even the more handsome white person or white people, they made more mistakes than the blacks. He organized so that no more people died, whether it's black or white, and he stepped out of the presidency. So when people requested him to stay as a president for a little longer, he said that going back to his hometown and living with nothing makes him more happy. That is so unlike Korea. There are so many people in Korea, whether they're in 70s or 80s, they desire to be a president. So compassion is a heart that concentrates to every mankind who desires to be free from suffering. There are three different categories. One is the compassion that concentrates on the living things. The other one is compassion that concentrates on the phenomenon. The other one is the concentration on the hidden meaning of it. They're all same because they all three compassions, they try to concentrate on the escape from the suffering of mankind. There is no difference whether it's black or whether it's us or whether it's the people from Africa. Buddhism never had differences. If you go to countries where Buddhism is prevalent, like Nepal or India, there is no class. But in Korea, like we had different classes. We had king, we had scholars, we also had merchants. We also had untouchables, and we also had commons, even in the merchants. We had about 5 different castes. It's quite funny nowadays too. Like if those people who has a little money, then they assume as if they are royals, and from our opinion, they do not seem to be living in a great happiness. And they claim not to drink the same water as we do. And in desire to join them, you get married to one of them, and you try to get married in 5-star hotels. And for a meal, it's about $100 to $150, and I felt like I only had $100 as the money that I can give to them. But if I eat $100 meal, it feels like I was making them lose. But you desire to imitate what they do, and by doing that act, it makes you feel better, and it also makes your husband or it also makes your children's life better. That's your misunderstanding of it. So when we say the compassion that concentrates on the living kind, the suffering that they go through, maybe the suffering of disease or maybe the suffering of oldness, it could be a lot of different things. And also the compassion that concentrates on the phenomenon. When you say phenomenon, we can interpret this way. In reality, if you look at Africa, the natural ecology of Africa is very poor. I saw a documentary recently, and due to the new virus, they seem to be suffering a lot, and the virus is, whether it's Ebola or whether it's AIDS or whether it's hunger or war between the tribes, whether all these things, all the contradictions or all the sufferings that is caused by the structure of the society, it creates them a lot of suffering. We also have a issue. We also have an issue that is very harmful to us and which is very threatening, which is the issue between North and South Korea. And if you do not study the fact that whether the North Korea and South Korea is of a same mankind, you should study the nature of the mankind. Also, the compassion that concentrates on the hidden meanings. All living things, they have suffering because from the time that they were born, they are bound to suffer, and so the compassion that sees them as how they are, but they are the same. But all the compassions are the same because they desire for the escape of suffering of all different humans or all different mankind. So there's a need for us to experiment on it. So first, when I say let's go to Tibet and do some medical volunteer work, or whether, and also let's offer them some food, I got a phone call which made I got a phone call which made my heart trigger a little more. And the person said, "Oh, there are also people who die of hunger in our country, and why do you do useless things?" And I told that person that to them you are more useless, and you do more useless acts. That's what I told the person. Think about it. About 200,000 Tibetan people died when they were attacked by China in 45. And if you say that from a nationality about 200,000 people died, then that's a big thing. That's something there is something very serious. But if you look at it from a Korean point of view, then you might say that whether it's not your problem whether they die or not, but it's just like it means you do not have any interest in them because you're so busy living for your life. Only if you can underestimate or feel their suffering, you should have the sense that if there's anything that you can do for them, you should try to help them. I tell these people who are studying there from Korea, I often tell them too, you should be able to help them. It's good that you come and study here, but you should also help those who need your help. So if there's something that you can help them, then you should try your best to help. But then a lot of them, they say that a lot of Korean monks come here and they also affect Tibetan monks studying here. And but here it's the same. Whether they become worse or not, just because of the some money that Korean people gave, I don't think it makes any difference to them. If I think about the offering that we made for the monks, even if I think about it now, I think 99.9% of me says it's still good. We have a lot of clothes in our closet. We have so many different kinds of clothing. I'm sure we have more than tens and twenties of clothes. Just because we made some donations, but over there, although it seems like it's not much thing that we have given them some clothes, it's a big thing for them. In Africa, for $30, you can give food for children who can live for a month. So per meal, per day is about $3, and per meal it's about 30 cents. So the doctors, they say in Africa, some kids got cold and they came to see me. So I gave them it is after breakfast, one after lunch, one after dinner. But think about it, is it possible? They do not have money to eat breakfast or lunch or dinner. So maybe it's better not to give them medicine, but give them something to eat for breakfast, for lunch, or for dinner. I think that comes before giving them medicine. We can't be full after eating a medicine. If you eat medicine until you become full, then you die. Whether it's vitamins or whether it's also whether it's a cold medicine. But if you have clothing and something to eat at the same time, then you do not die. But over there, you have things. You do not have plenty of things to eat or plenty of clothes to wear. If you're not able to wear warm clothes, then you might die of pneumonia too. So if you do a deep observation at those phenomena, then maybe about $40 to $50 is not a big amount for us, but for them, it is something very important. And I'm sure that if there are weak people, then that money could also save their lives. That's what I think. I want to do a similar thing this year too. I think there are about 11 monasteries in Spiti. And if Lechon Kutenla comes, then I want to find out about how many monks are there in Ladakh. And I wish to make them monk robes. Since Ladakh also has very harsh environment, I wish to give them some clothing if I can. I hope you do not buy yourself a cloth this year. Promise me. This year, do not even buy some vest. And also, perming your hair. Stop it for a year. Also, coloring. Also, buying cosmetics. Buy only what's basic. No eyelines, no foundations, also no eyelashes. Only lotion and maybe lipstick. I thought about it, but those lipsticks and those makeup things are expensive. I think if you miss out one, then maybe you can buy them or clothes. You know how to wear this towel, right? When you're farming, just like this, you can wear it. You can also suggest who's near you, and with the money that you didn't perm and with the money that you didn't buy cosmetics. And maybe we could cut the hair in Sakja Monastery. If there's anyone who owns parlor, we can just cut them without taking money, and let's do that. It is something that doesn't make any sense, that if you do not have it, then it's fine if you can help them, but you have enough and you have plenty, but if you do not wish to help them, then it doesn't make any sense. Last year we did about $3,200. Maybe this year we could do something like $10,000. Like in places like Bhutan, they do wear some decent clothing because the country itself is civilized. But if you go to Ladakh and like Nepal, where it's about 4,500 meters above sea level, the children, they run around in the dust, and even the clothes, it's so worn out, and even the shoes, they're just wearing a slipper. And maybe the slipper is only about $1 or $2, and it's made of sponge. And wearing that, they run around, and even the heating is not done properly. And so one of the when one of the monk, he said, have you been to Korea? If you have not been to Korea, then don't talk about it. And seems like that the Tibetan monk said that the Korea is so clean that if food falls on the street, then maybe you can just pick it and eat. And even the people were clean. So I told them inside is dark, it's dirty. But Tibetan monk was very surprised because because on the street there were so many different trees and the air was fresh in the morning, and also everyone were wearing clean clothes, and also everyone had clean houses. So he said, if you could only if you could only study well in such kind of environment, then there could be nothing better than this. But when I thought about it, because you are born in a good place, you do not wish to study. Because you are born in a good place, you tend to enjoy whatever you have. You realize that this is a good place that you are living, and you should live well in that good area. So what is living well? Living well doesn't mean I'm happy but it should be that when everyone else is going through difficulty, you should be able to help them a little bit. If you have the kind of thoughts and if you act towards it, then I do not mean only to those who are your relatives or who you love, but I mean to everyone who does not have any relations with you. I'm sure that you buy a couple of times or a few things for your your children. If they want something, that you tend to buy, and if you don't have money at the time, then you tell them you'll buy next month. But I don't think there's any parents who says I cannot buy for you. So the compassion that concentrates on the mankind doesn't mean that you're looking at the property of the mankind whose actual original characteristics is void, but we concentrate on the living mankind itself. You're looking at So when they have difficulty in the mankind, you look at the mankind itself. In Thailand, when I went to Thailand, they invite those people who are helped by government, who receive money from government, and at this time, a lot of doctors, they come from different hospitals and they diagnose the patients together, and on that day they also give them delicious food, and there are also volunteers who bath volunteers or hair cutting volunteers, and also laundry volunteers. And also there are some nurses or doctors who practiced talent show, and they also did some performance. Up to there, I thought they could do it, but they also give gift to people. And in Korea, if you say this is equality, and you give them, if you say we are giving them a mug, then for everyone we give them a mug. But over there, when I saw it, there were different. The packages were different, and everyone had different presents. And when I asked why is it different, for a month when they did voluntary work, they bought things that is necessary for people who receive them. And therefore, they bought things that were needed for those people who receive them. If it's blankets, or whether it's brooms, or whether it's the dustbins, or whether it's pillars. The price range was also different, and also the present itself is different. But the most effective thing for as a present is something that the other person needs. So they study for about 200 people what they need, and they gave precisely what they need. And I felt that was something great. We're concentrating on the characteristics itself. Um, the the compassion that concentrates on the phenomenon does not only concentrate on the living mankind, but it also concentrates on the existence of voidness. When we trust everyone in this world and when we live, it does not have a certain or concrete form, but in fact we are relying on others, and we live. But this is not something that we can depend on in our life. Even money is just an instrument that we live in our life. But if you live your life depending on the money, only solely on the money, then you might also suffer a lot. That's the same as your family. We should be able to realize that these things are also void and these things are also meaningless. They live in suffering because they are relying on these things and they do not understand that one day they will disappear. You should have this kind of thoughts on people who suffer. Likewise, those with a hidden meaning, or in other words, it also means the compassion that concentrates on the original characteristics of mankind, whose characteristic is in fact damaged. You're not very aware of the fact that you possess the power to become Buddha. A lot of people, they are not aware that something like that exists in this world, but in fact they believe in God, and they also believe in things that is invalid. And in reality, we are not aware that we can make our own happiness. You feel that the happiness is given to you from external sources, but you're not aware that happiness is something that arises inside of you. Because your characteristics are so, they are bound to suffer and they are bound to follow. They follow the death and life, the cycle of death and life. And understanding this, you should grow the sense of equanimity. If you look at it from different direction, then compassion is a kind heart that accumulates virtues. Here, the virtue means through the practice, your compassion grows bigger, compassion grows stronger, but your suffering dies. This is not a problem, or this is not a matter of whether trusting a certain religion or not. It is also not so that just because you believe in Buddhism, that happens. Even if you do not believe in Buddhism, you can attain all the happiness and you can attain compassion, but it is difficult because they do not have a systematic teaching. The good sense of one person, or general good sense of one person, has a direct relation with your kind heart of the person. The kind person gets respected, and he also has kind of friendliness to others. And you can also find this from other animals. When I went to Sri Lanka, I realized that if you're kind to other animals, that also means you understand and you acknowledge that even animals have life. Whether it's squirrels or elephants, even the birds, they were not scared or they were not shocked to see human, but they approached human. I've never been to Bhutan, but in Bhutan they try to live with animals. And I heard even tigers, they do not attack people. Here we often see in the news that a boar comes down to the village and attacks a market. Korean boars, they are not able to gain their proper senses because if they come down from the mountain, then they can see so many cars running around. And what do you think it looks like to them? It looks like an animal that's bigger than them, and they run very fast with 4 legs. And because they run so fast, boars are in fact trying to survive, and in order to survive, they are attacking us. That's because of our characteristics of attacking. And so in order to survive, they run away and they might jump into a restaurant and they are shot to death. So even the animals, if you treat them with a pure heart or if you treat them with great compassion, then even the animals, they do not try to harm you, but they will also have this sense of equanimity or sense of peace. Animals, they do not know what to do to people who are kind to them because they feel so good about it. They they go around people and they do not know what to do because they're so happy. The dog who's in my room, he likes me so much that sometimes when I go to abroad and come back, he's so happy to see me and he jumps around and sometimes he falls unconscious. If I do not hug him and acknowledge his being there, then sometimes he falls unconscious. And I think because of these reasons, maybe those people living in America, they donate their money or all of their property when they die in order to take care of them after their deaths. But the funny thing is, I think he understands about 40 things that I say. If I say handshake this leg, I ask him to stand, he stands up. If I call him, he comes. I wonder if he notices or if he makes out because of my voice tone. But if I say under the same tone, then he understands. He hates bats, so if I tell him let's bat, his ears drop and he becomes very upset. He understands let's go, but when someone else calls him to let's go, then he responds a little, but he stops. Even animals do things like this. And I think there is no need to talk about human who is more sensitive and who understands better. So if you do not treat other mankind with compassion and understanding, then they won't be able to approach Buddhist doctrine. In places like Budgaya, if there's nothing to eat, then animals like deers, they come down to the houses and they move around in order to ask for something to eat. And if they're given something, then they go away. That's a nice thing, right? But us, if a boar comes, then we call 911 and the boars are shot to death and they come on news and as if it is something that has been great. They come on news saying they caught this boar. We shouldn't do something like that. And opposite, if animals are also able to notice people who approach them with ever thoughts. If they hear their voice and even just by the footsteps they run away. And so the kind motivation or the warm heart is a very important or very precious characteristics. So if you're treating others, you should always treat others with warm and kind heart. A lot of monasteries in Korea, they are not kind, starting from me. I think this is something that we have to think once again. We are not kind. I think the monasteries are not kind because they do not have this kind of thoughts. You should always bring others and as your companion to Buddhism, and in that way they also grow their relation with Buddhism. Do not come on your own, and also please don't come just because I said do not come on your own. A person who has compassion is always respected by everyone, and due to his state of being happy, he always has friends. This should be the basic way for you to spread Buddhism. If you see someone who is happy amongst the companions, then you can realize with one side that he's a person with compassion as a motivation. If you talk about the value or lack of being compassionate, I heard that he's a dentist. He goes to church, and during the time when they did not have implants, from if you go to villages, then it's hard to find dentists, and so this Catholic priest, this dentist who goes to Catholic church, he used to make dentures for the old people. From what I heard, he only works in his office for about 2 to 3 days, and on other days, in other days, maybe even on the weekends, like Friday to Sunday, he spends his time looking after the teeth of elders in the villages. After his death, there were like thousands of people who were present at his funeral. I don't think this is something that's very simple that they would just want to come just because he was helped before.
그냥 불법도 전부 다 이렇게 친절하게 그 자비기사의 마음이라는 것은 이렇게 친절하게 함으로써 교화가
I
시작됩니다.
think even Buddhism, if you start off in a kind way, then the changes begin, and the compassion will also begin from your heart in that way.
일들이 아니란 말이에요. 작은 일에서부터 그렇게
Everything starts from little things.
착함의 뿌리가 되는 거예요.
It becomes the root of the kindness, and then it becomes a great compassion. It becomes as a platform. If I give you examples, then maybe the meaning of the kindness become a little more clear. If we smile, if we give a happy smile, then without any cost, we can give happiness to others' heart.
미소 하나만 가지고.
We can do it just with a smile.
만약
If you're not happy and if you're not peaceful state, then no matter how much property that you have, there's no guarantee that there will be friends around you.
돈은 많이 갖고 있는데 주변에 좋은 사람이 없고 다 좋은 사람을 잃었다 그러면
If you say, even if you have a lot of money, if you do not have friends around you, then
실제 좋은
although there could be a few people who comes to you for drinks, maybe you do not have a good friends with them.
오랜 생 뒤에 수행 있다는 그런
And even if you form a companion of your spiritual practice, you might not be able to find good friends after a while. If you have competitive and also aggressive heart, then even if you give all your property, it won't be easy for you to find proper benefit. On the other hand, if you have compassion and also if you have interest in others for their benefit, then your heart will always be peaceful. Therefore, the kind heart and the cooperative posture will be the very basic heart for me and also for the future, for myself and also for myself even now and also for the future.
왜 그건 전부 다 그렇게 하면 흩어져 버리니까 정신 같은 상태가 흩어져 버리고 몸도 다 상하게 되고 할 수가 없는
If you do not have kind and also peaceful heart, then your heart will become distracted, and making a proper basis or proper platform is very important all the time. If you do not have a proper basis, then
받기 위해서
although we're not doing it solely to make the platform, but if you do not have a proper platform or proper basis, then it's difficult to achieve your dream.
실조적인 마음에서 생긴
The positive personality which began from the cooperative heart is very valuable. All the religions in the world,
그리고 다른 사람을 돕는데 관심을 가져
they tell people to have interest in others and also help others.
가치를 두어야 한다는 것은 모두가
And this is commonly acknowledged that you should have value in these basic things. Especially in Buddhism, they keep the basis in the compassion, and they also emphasize on the practice of compassion.
힘을 수행하는 방법은
Also in Buddhism, what could be the way to practice compassion? First, having the affection
우리가 이제
and love on people,
그림을 봤다라고 할 때 그림을 보면서 내가
and also for those suffering. First is to have the sympathy and also love for those who suffer, and the other one is to figure out the actual characteristics of the suffering.
에이 저 사람은 또 의심을 이렇게 저 사람은 앵벌이 집에 뭐 다 잘 먹고 잘
When you look at people, then you
살다가 뒤에 또 누가 조종하고 있다가
you have to find out
되는 것은 그것은 그 사람을
if you have the sense of anger or if you have sense of hatred or if you have sense of love for the others, then you will be able to find out what you think about the person.
사람이 참 힘들어
Looking at the person, if you feel the other person is suffering, and if you wish to help him to escape from the tunnel of his suffering, then
수행의 기본 과정이
then it has already given you the basis or very basic platform for your practice.
그러니까 고통스러워하는 사람이 오히려 나에게 자비심이 싹트게 하는 그 조건보다는 더 우연하게
So the object or person who suffers acts as a cause for you to arise the sense of compassion. That's why it's very important.
나의 수행에 자랑 수행에 굉장히 큰 자비심을 갖다 길러나가는 큰 도움이 된다.
This will help you to grow your own values. The other one is figuring out the actual characteristics of suffering. Figuring out the suffering characteristics of suffering means the property of your suffering. Most of them arises from your greed because of your own benefit. Of course, there are some external factors. For example, because it was too hot, it is difficult for people to live, and also there could be other natural disasters like earthquakes or hurricanes or tornadoes. But basically, because we have been given life, and also because our life keeps changing, and also it's void, the suffering is bound to arise, and you are attached to those changes. You are being attached and you are stagnant because you do not progress. Most of the mankind through the same process, and therefore you have to think, what is it that I can do in order to help them? And that becomes the motivation for our practice. And so the final act is to become Buddha, and also the road to Bodhisattva. So the sense of compassion should be the basis of your Bodhisattva. You should have understanding of those two, and if you concentrate your heart for the mankind, then you will wish to free all mankind from suffering and also the cause of this suffering. First, it should begin with developing love and sympathy for those who suffer, and this is the practice for the equanimity. You should develop this sense of equanimity. If you don't develop the sense of equanimity, then the compassion doesn't happen. When you inspect our heart, we can divide it into three different categories. The category which feels hatred, ignorant, and also familiar category. We consider the special ones as our friends and our relatives. But because you're scared that those who will not be close to you will disturb which you have and which you will have in future, you tend to keep distance from them. So if something is against your greed, then you hate, and then if something is in, or if something is together or as per your greed, then you like them, and it begins a fight. With this thought, you arise the sense of hatred and also sense of anger. Although we say we have to grow this compassion for all mankind, in reality we have more interest in ourselves, and the compassion for others are only shown on our external self.
행하는 것처럼 많이 행동을 하지만 그러나 안에 이제 사실을 들여다보면
So in reality, you act like you are a very compassionate person, but if you look inside your heart, then most of them move around because of your interest, and you argue for your interest. Therefore, if you want to arise the sense of compassion for all other beings, then you should not differentiate all other mankind, but you should try to grow the sense of equanimity, for which you will be able to treat all human beings as the same. You should not make difference even to the animals.
부탄이나 스리랑카 같은 데는 그 불교 정신이 굉장히 일반 사회에 배어 있어가지고
In countries like Bhutan or Sri Lanka, they do not think of animal as something which they have to catch and they have to kill. They consider them as weak beings to whom you should be kind.
그러니까 운전하면서 코끼리가 이제 이렇게 나와서 저 코끼리
That's what I felt when they were driving.
코끼리를 쐈을
An elephant came out to the street when they were walking, and
어디 가둬버리든지 잡아라 동물에
And some people might wonder, why don't they just catch the elephant and put him in the zoo?
요만큼 있으면 코끼리 약 안 올리려고 요 섰다가 살짝 피해가고
Instead, in India, what they do is they respect their own privacy. So if they see an elephant down in the street, then they stop for a while in order to wait for elephant to pass, so that they don't disturb them.
지리산 순환도로에서 그 연구원들이 그 고속도로에 나와서 치어 죽은 동물을 6개월간 조사했어요.
In Chirui Mountain, the researchers experimented on animals that had been died due to roadkill for 6 months.
조사한 것을 100% 다
On the freeway of Chirui Mountain,
한 360만 마리인가 죽었어요.
and after the research, they were able to find out that there were about 3.6 million animals dead during this time. Snakes were the ones who were killed the most, but they also had other animals like moose and different animals.
6개월간 차를 갖다 쏜살같이 몰고 다니는데
There were so many animals that were killed in the roadkill during this time.
우리 생각에서 놓고 친절하지 않지. 우리 생각에
So, but if you think about it from your own point of view, then maybe they are not being kind. We have built a clean road and we want to run fast. And some people might argue that with the tax that we have paid, why is the road not so good? But on the road, while we were running so fast on the road that we made, about 4 million animals died.
그래서 미국 같은 데는 그 도로에
So in countries like America,
나타나는 지역이면 여기는 곰이 잘 나타나니까 차를 갖다 천천히 몰고 가시고 곰이 잘 나타나니까
if there is a road where you can see bears frequently, then they make a notice that this is an area where we can see the bear often, and therefore please do not run at higher speed. And also they have built so many like tunnels for the animals.
바로 받쳐가지고 다 잡아갔어요.
But in Korea, when you make like a tunnels for snakes, then they catch all the snakes. They put a net and they catch the snakes.
개울을 하거든. 동면을 하는데
Normally they hibernate under a rock, the snakes.
그래서 쥐도 잡아먹고
They run around the farms to eat the rat, and when it becomes cold, then they have to go back to the mountain. But they have to pass the road, and that's when they die.
발견 못 해가지고 그 지구촌이 밑에 그 하수구에서 올라오지 못하고 그 우수 통로 있죠, 그죠? 근데 못 올라오고
Sometimes they cannot find their own tunnel, and so they go to the sewage and they die in the sewage.
이렇게 이제 들어가서 산으로 올라가는데 그 통로에다가 그물을 유도로를 이렇게 만들어가지고 그물을 뒤에다 통발하듯이 이렇게 해놔놓고
Just like fishing, when you make a net, I have seen people making nets in order to catch snake to make their own alcohol.
보통 중생들에 대한 우리의 일상적인 마음 상태를 점검해보면 친근함을 느끼는 불과 혐오를 느끼는 무관심을 했나? 응? 그렇거든. 또 우리가 친구나 친척들에게 특히
Also, especially when we are being kind and nice to our friends or our relatives, we should know that this begins from attachment. This begins from affection and also attachment. So when you think about it, no matter whether it's a president, and although he is the number one person in the world, he's not our relatives. When we say President Kim Dae-jung has passed away, there are not many people who came here and cried, but instead you ask how old was he, and about 80 something, then you feel like, oh, I feel sorry for him, but it's about time that he died. But then if you listen that there is someone from Africa died, then you don't know, you don't have any sense of grief, but you just feel that there was some black person who died. But then if you say your husband is dead, then no matter how much fights that you had with him before, you feel miserable. When you mourned, when I listen to it, sometimes when I do the analyze, the final ending is obviously you think about you did not think about what suffering they go through after their death, but then you think about how do you want me to live, and everything is in fact for you. Everything you're thinking about yourself. When you watch TVs, they have together with the grandfather and grandmother. The grandmother feels difficulty living together with the grandfather. Why? Because the grandfather doesn't earn money, and also he's only yelling, and you have to feed him, and it's only cumbersome. And they do not even know how to switch on the stove because they have never done it. That's why when we ask the grandmothers if you want to meet your husband once again, they say no, they are not going to meet them after their life. But the husbands wants to meet the wife once again. They say she's only one even in next life, and they feel their gratitude. But maybe in fact they do not want to meet them once again, but they want to be fed and they want to be taken care of.
밥, 청소 이걸 어떻게 하는 거지?
Normally, the husbands, when they feel bad about their wife dying first, it's because they didn't know how to take care of laundry, food, and if they are able to take care of them, then they do not mind.
우리가 아들 스무
So
살
eventually,
한때 아이고 사주쟁이가 그래. 갑자기
once we also prefer sons to daughters.
그렇게 해가지고 아니, 이 집에 자식이 없는데 그리고 무슨 소리냐면 아들이 없다는 또
And also the fortune tellers, they also read that, oh, I do not see any son in this house.
크지가 않아.
They did not even consider daughters as their children at the time, and
또 그 밑에 애가 하나 또 때는 우가오
they also named
떠가오리 그러는데
the children in a very weird way in olden times.
뭐라 그랬어? 어? 하이 이제 그만 떼어놨어 딸막이. 그 다음에 하나 떼어놨어 끝순이. 이런 뭐 가오리, 우가오리, 딸막이, 끝순이 뭐 그렇게 이름을 지어놔.
They used to name their children depending on the situation. But if they have sons,
간상제이한테 장맹가한테 가가지고 돈을 주고
then they go to a fortune teller and they pay them to make names.
그런 아들은 그냥 잘 가르쳐 놓으니까 어디 가서 안 오고.
But those sons, after so much suffering, you have brought them up, they go somewhere and they never come back. But daughters, they take care of you. And I don't see so much meaning in taking care of them when they were being brought up. And also sons, when they have their wives, when their own respective wives, they also do not do much special.
내무, 재무,
Most of the powers of home, whether it's administration or finance or manpower, the wives, they have it all. The daughters-in-law.
그 재무장관
She is a minister of the law,
기획은
and she's the minister of the economics,
그 다음에 보니까 보건복지부 장관도 그
and also she's a minister of health.
보건복지부 장관에다가 뭐 또 뭐 행정처리 이런 것도 다 그었었는데 그
And also she takes care of all the administration in the house.
또 그다음에 그 안에 장관들 가운데 그 실세 장관은 이게 그 소임을 다지고 앉았더라. 교육부 장관까지 다지고.
She is also the minister of education in the house.
바지 바람 안 그래. 치마 바람 그렇지. 그래가지고 그왜 하필 치마를 입고 가서 해야지 그 바지를 입고 가니까. 그러니까 이게 아주 실력 장관이 다 하고 앉았는데 남자는 보니까 이제 요즘에는 외무장관도 사실 여자가 하더라. 남자는 뭐냐 노동부 장관.
Normally, in olden times, the men used to be the foreign minister, but nowadays the women take care of it too. But when you look at men, they usually do the minister of defense and also the minister of labor.
그런 메카닉 하나도 없어. 실제 국물은 다
Normally, the husbands they do only the minister of labor and also defense, and so they don't usually do a lot of useful things.
가지고 앉았으니까 국방부 장관이나 이런 전쟁이 일어났을 때나 뭐 메카를 치는 것이지.
You know, the minister of defense is only powerful when there is a war.
뭐 일을 와가지고 그러고 다니고. 그래 나중에 이제 애기들이 말이야. 애기들도 딱 눈치를 봐가지고 실세한테 갖다 붙어.
And even later, the babies, they also know how to read the situation and they side those who is more powerful.
나가자니 술부대가 되고 또
And then men, they will not know what to do. Later, even at home, they do not have so much power. And
그러면 이게 심사를 하잖아 또.
and even if they want to go out to even if they want to go out, they do not have so many people to hang around with, and they also have no money, so they go and ask for money from the bank.
아, 그 좀 주지 그러면 안 줘. 오늘
And also when we tell them the when you ask for pocket money from your wives, then they don't give you so much money. Maybe they will give you $10 a day, and also they will say, "But why don't you have money? I have done everything in my power to give you all the money that I have." But then the woman will also say, "I have brought up my children."
그래서 남자는 특수를 못.
And also, even if you argue with them, the women usually have a louder voice, and men will not know what to say.
좀 나온 사람은 더 힘세. 배짱이 좋아가지고. 전부 다 그 결국 우리가 살아가는 것 자체도 전부 자기에서
So our life itself is also same. Our life is also based on all our attachments.
결국 영감하고 같이 안 살겠다는 사람 보면 그 마누라가 바라는
So if you look at those people who does not want to live with their husbands once again in their next life, that means they were not able to keep up with their own expectations. Maybe they have not been able to earn money, or maybe they had an affair, and in that way the wives might also have a little more complaints, and that all becomes a cause for your divorce. So in the kindness that's been shown outside, you should know that there is a selfish motivation hidden in it. So if I say, "Oh, Sattva, did you come?" it means, "Oh, did you bring money?" So what I mean to say is, do not do those things which are flattery. When I say be kind means teach them what are the ways to practice, teach them the Buddhist teachings. And sometimes when they say, "Oh, did you come? Did Sattva come?" This is a great Sattva, but from my point of view, it was nothing great. We have our own prejudice on people, saying, "Oh, this person does good for me, and that person is related to me." When you say that person is a good person, that person is a person who does well to you, or who does good to you. When a thief says he's a good person, what person do you think it is? That person is the person who doesn't lock the house. If our police cannot catch a thief, can we say he's a very good person? He's a very good person. He knows what difficulty we go through. But is he a good person? For a thief, the worst person is a person who made the doors very strong, and also he made a lock, and also also made a CCTV, and also made an emergency bell. For a thief, that kind of person is a very bad person. When you generally say the person is a good person, it refers to the fact that does a person suit, or is the person compatible to the greed that the other person possesses. You categorize that way, and you classify that way. So the word kindness that we use every day, we use it in the way that is a little more close to attachment.
지금 이제 세속에서는 친절이라 그러면 대부분 복수하거나 아부하는 것을 얘기하지만 여기에서 친절은
In reality, we talk about kindness. Normally, that is flattering, and normally that's very flattering. But it is not so in here in this context. The kindness refers to the fact that you treat all others with kindness, and also with compassion. So, what is a true compassion? We are going to talk about this part in our next teaching.
우리가 25일 날
On 25th, we are going to have festival. Did you all get ticket for the festival?
오늘 여러분이 모시고 올 수 있는 수만큼 다 갖고 가세요.
Please take tickets to the number of people that you can bring.
모시고 올 수 있는 수만큼 다 갖고 가세요.
Please take as many tickets as you need.
모시고 그날 뭐냐면 그 안에 이제 나중에 카탈로그 나올 건데
You will soon have catalogs.
꼭 찬불가를 한 곡씩 하고
And the time we are going to sing Buddhist hymn, I asked them to sing the hymns on purpose.
가요라도
And after that, there could be some songs, whether it's related to Buddhism or not, and also whether it is just a common songs.
했거든요. 그 무용단도 이제
And there will be also dancers.
전부 다 불교 무용인데 이제 보살춤이라든지
And even the dancers, it's all related to Buddhism. So that's also like Sattva dance.
또 이제
And there will be also
불자들이 와서 찬불가하고 그다음에 그 가곡 가운데서도 불교 그 노래를 갖다가 할 수 있도록 이제 그렇게
and also the vocalists, they will sing the Buddhist songs.
다 나오십시오.
So I hope on that day all of you come to the hall. I'm sure that even other monasteries are aware of it, but the ticket is almost like an invitation. So please call a lot of people, and also please make sure that many people could come to the place.
다좀 아는데 연락하세요.
Please call those you know. And also I have a request to make.
그 아까 그 우리 예술제 그 만든 카탈로그 아직 없지? 한 장만 줘. 한 장. 응? 이제 불교 예술제는 시에서 약 1,000만 원, 930만 원 정도
The art festival has been held by the city about
지원하거든요. 그래서
90,000.
파는 것이 아니고
Oh, about 9,000, and the rest we have to take care of. And this ticket is not for sale. But I just want a lot of people to come and see this,
근데 거기에 뒤에
see the performance.
전부 다 받아요. 요거는 본문하고 상관없는 얘기입니다. 협찬
And also this is not related to teaching.
그 협찬 뒤에
And
광고할 수 있게끔 여러분들께서 이제 무슨 그게 뭐 특별히 무슨 광고가 되겠습니까? 같이 협조하는 것이지. 그래서 여러분께서 이제 지금 며칠
and I'm going to write the sponsors who sponsor this show in the backside of the catalog.
뒤에 그
And so today is 15th, so until 20th.
여러분들께서 그 사무실로 이렇게 좀 말씀을 좀 해주시면 좋겠습니다.
Please write your names in the office so that we can write the names of sponsors.
그리고 다 이제 그 팜플렛 안내로 나갈 건데
and that will also be out in the pamphlet.
소화하기 위해서
But
말씀드릴게요.
for once again, I'm going to tell you, 10 o'clock we will start our prayer here on the Buddha's birthday.
영양 올리고 그다음에 이제
We're going to pray and we're going to have lunch. And after that,
한 30분 10시 반 정도에
about 10:30,
내춘 스님이랑 기도 이렇게 하시고
Nechun Kudela will come and pray, and
그 법문하시고 축사하는 것은 이제
after that he will have a brief teaching, and
나온 사람은 아무도 못해. 뭐 시의회도 그렇고
there'll be some addresses made, but I didn't accept anyone who is running election,
성당에 이제 신부님하고
but I invited a priest from a Catholic church and also our president of our monastery,
이제 말씀들은 안 드렸는데 그렇게 할 예정입니다.
and also someone from China. That's my plan as of now.
법문 끝나고 나서는
And after the teaching,
사진은 여기다 모실 겁니다.
we will have the Buddha's lyric here.
중국에서 모시고 한 촉발 한 2, 3일 전에 들어올 거예요.
The Buddha's lyric will arrive Korea about 2 to 3 days before the Buddha's birthday ceremony, and
그러니까 한 5바가 더
they will come from China. And also the lyric that I had in my room that's grown,
하고 중국에서도 군사리를 한 10과 정도 이렇게
I'll also make sure that you guys could see that.
한테 많이 알려서 같이 이렇게
And I hope you could also let others know who's near you or who's close to you and could see the lyrics together. So when after the teaching, we will also do the ceremony of Little Buddha's bath, and
여러분과 같이 이제 가피에
it has not been yet decided. But after that, I hope that Jinkutela will give you a little small token of blessing, maybe like a little rosary. And if you come to this way, and you could prostrate and you could see the lyrics. And we will do that until maybe about 3:30, and after 3:30,
3시 반 정도까지는 다 끝날 거예요. 끝나면
all of you who's gathered here will finish around 3:30, and those who arrive later, I hope to make sure that you can see it afterwards.
이제 사생대회 하는 것은 그전과 똑같이 하고요. 3시 반에
And also the competition for drawings for little kids. I think I heard that there is also a dance competition for children.
뭐야 그 전부 다 앞에 그 밑에 뭘 바닥 깔아줘야 될 거 아닌가. 머리를 밑에 대고 뺑뺑이 돌려서 하니까 안 깔아주면 다 이상하게 될 거 아니야. 그래서 어쨌든 그런 그 사진 또이 핸드폰 스마트폰으로 사진 찍는 데도 하고 이제
They're also going to do a picture or photograph competition using their mobiles. So until the end of the day, there will be something going on. So I hope you attend the meetings, or I hope you attend the teachings in other temples, and you could also offer the lights in other temple, but they could just come here in order to celebrate together with us. And this year, when I went to Sri Lanka, when you make offerings,
이제 그 꽃도 꽃들 이렇게 해가지고 여기에 자기 손에다 이렇게 하거나 안 그러면
even the flowers, they bring the flowers in their hand, or they make the garlands with the flowers. I think the whole country does that too with the.
전부 다 하얀 옷 입고 다 가가지고 공양을 누르는
On the day that they go to temples, they all wear white clothes and they come with a flower.
아이들 꽃 이제 그다음에
And so this year, I think I want to prepare maybe like fruits, rice, flour, and also candles.
그것도 우리가 좀
So you could come and maybe you could purchase whichever one ever you want to offer. I think that's also something that we have to practice a little.
하고 그러니까 여러분께서 이번에는 가요법회 나오시는 분들은 좀 딴전에 좀 다니시는
Those who come for Tuesday teaching,
저기
even if you go to other temples,
그 비빔밥은 공양하는 거기에서 전부 다 걷어붙이고서 일들 해주시면 고맙겠습니다.
I hope you could come and help them in order to, even when they are preparing lunch.
그러지 말고 사람 없어 나는 그것만 딱 달라고 그러니까 알았어요.
Please bring people.
그렇게 하면 되겠죠. 내충 스님은 해양 그 해양경찰 교육원에 그 불상 그 모신 거 저만 할 거고요. 또 이제 진달래 그 불상 모신 거 지금 불상
Lechungkutila will make offerings for the Buddha statue in the Marine Police, and also
소나무에
he'll go to Jindale Festival, and he will also pray in the Sonamu Nursing Home. He'll be out in the schedule.
끝낼까요?
Shall we end here, or shall we continue? Let's end.